Family, tonight we will conclude our study in Romans 12, verse number 12. That particular verse has been so rich that we've not been able to capture the essence of that passage in just one setting. The first thought from that passage is about rejoicing in hope. The second was being patient in tribulation. Tonight we want to look at the phrase continuing instant in prayer. I really believe in prayer. I always say that prayer will do one of two things. It will either change your circumstances or it will change you to handle circumstances that won't change. We get excited about singing in church, and there's certainly nothing wrong with enjoying good singing. But do we get excited about prayer? Why is it that couples come in for counseling who say they've never prayed together? Or parents come in complaining about children and the choices they've made, and you discover from those children prayer has never been a central part of their family dynamic. Prayer is essential to our being able to navigate through the confusion of this life. Prayer is so awesome that it actually can improve your health, in particular, your cardiovascular health. This is not just my opinion. This is based on a study from the Mayo Institute in which they determined that people who had an active and regular prayer life actually showed in a study to have improved cardiovascular health and lower blood pressure. That says a lot about the power of prayer. You hear me say that we must not have a public prayer life if we don't have a private prayer life. When we think about our public prayer life, there are some questions we may want to ask. Of course, prayer is important and we want to maintain our connection to God. That's what being instant in prayer means. It means being faithful, it means being persistent in prayer. But when we pray publicly or ask for prayers publicly, some questions that we may want to reflect on. Number one, are we seeking from people or seeking from God? Sometimes in our expression of public prayer requests, we're wanting something from people, when prayer is about what we are to get from God. We have to learn that people may not be able to or choose not to give us what we want and desire, but God will always take care of his children. In our public prayers, we must also think about, are we listening to others? When we listen to others, sometimes we get a perspective that what we're going through is not so bad after all. We have to also keep in mind in listening to others that when we always have a prayer request, it can cause others to assume that we don't care about what they have to say, that we're only willing to express what we want to say. Another question in a public prayer request is, are you sharing information that need not be shared? Sometimes when people make prayer requests, they say things in response to a concern for others that if they were listening, they might not want that information shared. Though you may enjoy sharing your life publicly, everybody doesn't necessarily like sharing their lives publicly. We must also keep in mind as we talk about what is being shared that sometimes details, even in our personal lives, are unnecessary. For example, if you have a health concern, you can just say, pray for me as I am having some health challenges. May not be important to know how many cc's of medicine you got and you've tried 10 prescriptions and these types of things that are unnecessary details. We recognize people share details in an effort to express their concerns and to give a broader perspective. But we must be careful that in our public prayers that we are not praying simply to seek attention or to express how we are a victim. A prayer request is to invite God into a circumstance. The benefits of a private prayer life is that it gives you time in reflection. There are times when we see Jesus praying and he chose to pray alone. Everything does not need to be said publicly. Matthew 14, verse 23, and Mark 1, verse 35 are just two examples of Jesus praying alone. Alone time in prayer gives the benefit of reflection. It gives us the benefit of quieting our mind and focusing. Alone time in prayer also gives a benefit, and that we get to hear God in the silence around us. You remember when Elijah sought God and he heard the wind and there was the earthquake and there was the fire in 1 Kings 19 verses 11 through 13. And it was not until there was the still small whisper, the gentle whisper. Sometimes we need to have some private time in prayer so we can hear the gentle whisper. And we must always avoid attention seeking. Private prayer allows us to concentrate on God. In Matthew 6, verses 5 through 6, Jesus condemned people who use prayer as a means of simply getting attention. All of us want to feel like somebody cares for us, that somebody's concerned, and that somebody has compassion on us. And while God may put people in your life to be caring, concerned, and compassionate, remember that ultimately he cares more, he's more concerned, and more compassionate. Always remember that though the majority of people may not be there for you, you plus God always equals the majority. This has been another installment of A Few Minutes with the Minister.